North Korea may have taken a fateful step forward on the path toward being a nuclear weapons power. The Washington Post reports that U.S. intelligence officials have concluded that the North Korean regime has developed a nuclear warhead small enough to fit inside its missiles, which are believed capable of striking not only South Korea and the immediate region, but also the United States. Speaking in New Jersey this afternoon, President Trump had tough words for Pyongyang.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
Joining me now to look at today's developments are Wendy Sherman. She served as Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs from 2011 to 2015 under President Obama. She helped to negotiate the Iran nuclear deal. She was also part of the Clinton administration team that negotiated with North Korea over its nuclear program in the 1990s. And Melissa Hannum. She works in the East Asia Non-Proliferation Program at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey. Melissa Hannum, I'm going to start with you because you work on issues like this. Tell us what exactly is this capability that it now appears is confirmed that the North Koreans have?
Sure. So for some time, we've tracked North Korea's missile and nuclear weapons capability in the open source. I work at Middlebury, where we only have access to open source information, that is, what's not classified. But even in the information available to us through photographs, through video, and through public statements, we've been able to see that there's a strong probability that North Korea already had a warhead that could fit on the tip of actually several of its missiles. We do that first by looking at the images to see if there's any fakery or Photoshop being done, and then by measuring objects inside the photos. The thing we couldn't prove is whether the warhead that North Korea showed off in 2016 in March was real or not, because we can't see into the inside of it. And while that sort of silver orb had some realistic features, there were other things that were kind of strange. But the fact that the DIA now says that they have this capability really kind of confirms what we had been expecting.
So it doesn't sound like this comes as a complete surprise to you. If this is the case, if it's confirmed, what exactly does that mean the North can do in terms of striking another country?
Well, so just this past month, they've launched an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile known as the Hwasong-14. And in their tests, they used what's called a lofted trajectory, which means they launched the missile very high trajectory and then had it come down not too far from its origin point. But the total distance traveled demonstrates that it could reach most of the U.S. states. And it may indeed actually put New York and Washington, D.C. at risk, depending on how heavy its payload was. So if they can indeed put a kind of compact warhead on the tip of this missile, then probably what they are doing is making a weapon to deter the United States from coming to the aid of its allies in the region, like South Korea and Japan.
Ambassador Wendy Sherman, assuming this capability is what it looks like it is, what does that mean from a strategic standpoint?
Well, it's very concerning for sure, but not unexpected, Judy, whether the DIA is correct, because this is not a community assessment.
This is the Defense Intelligence.
Yes, the Defense Intelligence Agency is correct or not, because it's not a community assessment yet, it appears. It doesn't really matter, because we knew that sooner or later they would be able to create a small warhead that could go on the ICBM that Melissa talked about. They still have some guidance issues probably of that missile. They probably have a re-entry problem with that missile, but they are making progress at quite a rapid pace. It is right for the U.S. government to be concerned. It is right for Americans to be concerned. It was a very good step that was taken at the UN to have a 15-0 unanimous vote of the UN Security Council to impose more onerous sanctions on North Korea, but that won't be enough. There are many other pieces to this puzzle to get them to come to a negotiating table in seriousness, and it will probably take quite a bit for us to get to that point.
Is it possible, Wendy Sherman, to know what the intentions of the North are?
Well, I think we have all known that the intention is to survive. Kim Jong-un wants his regime to survive. They want to deter the United States. They believe the United States is the only country capable of really doing them in, because not only do they have nuclear weapons now, but they also have a very real conventional army and conventional artillery, which could pose catastrophic damage on our ally and partner Seoul, in South Korea, and in Japan.
Melissa Hanna, back to you. Is there any sort of consensus in the research community about what the North is prepared to do, what its intentions are?
Well, measuring their capabilities is a lot easier than measuring their intent, unfortunately, and intent can change. One remark that I do find interesting is in recent KCNA statements, when they discussed the Hwasong-14 intercontinental ballistic missile.
This is the news agency
They make
in the
statements,
North.
and I'm paraphrasing here, that they would never give up their nuclear weapons or their missiles unless the U.S. stops its threatening behavior and definitely removes the nuclear threat from North Korea. That I may be hanging a lot on that word unless, but it's possible they're leaving a cracked door open. The U.S. has been responding to North Korea primarily with sticks, sanctions, strategic patience, these kinds of things. You know, it may be time, and I can say this because I'm an academic and I can put far out there, I can put ideas out there, but it may be time to give them a small nudge. I thought Rex Tillerson's statement that the U.S. was not out to overthrow the regime might have been a good start, although with today's Trump remarks, that may all be out the window again.
And that's,
but I would prefer to see them at the negotiating table.
And that's what I was going to ask Ambassador Sherman about. It was just a few days ago that the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, said, we're prepared to sit down and talk to the North. But then you just heard President Trump saying if they do anything more threatening, they will be met with fire and fury.
Right. I think we don't have a coherent policy here that we're seeing implemented. We had the sanctions, as Melissa pointed out. It's good to have sticks. It's important because it won't stop their program, but it might say you've got a choice to make here. You can either get on a path of negotiating or you won't be able to survive as a regime because your economy will go to hell in a handbasket, because you will be a pariah in the world, because you will not get what you want out of this. You won't get safety and security. But that also means you have to signal that you will have an open channel, which Secretary Tillerson did. But today, the President of the United States' comments have really, quite literally, blown up that possibility for the moment, because the North will not be able to back down from its position when they hear the President of the United States say, in fact, we do have a hostile action coming your way.
You know, Wendy Sherman, I know we've had discussion after discussion on this program about what are the possibilities between the United States and North Korea. And the question comes now that we know they have this capability, or it appears that they have this capability, what are the mechanics even in place for the two sides to have a conversation, to talk to each other, to try to climb down from this place that it appears where we are?
Well, I think there is a possibility and a way to get there. China is certainly a critical player in that, in their conversations with North Korea. That may be true for Russia as well. And I think it was very important that China and Russia were on this UN Security Council resolution, that the Chinese foreign minister really implored North Korea to stop its behavior and to get back to the negotiating table. And Foreign Minister Lavrov said the same thing. Judy, we have to use all of our tools at our disposal. The carrots, the sticks, and everything else we can think of, including working very closely with South Korea and Japan, because they are already at risk today in ways that we are not yet at risk.
Well, we are going to leave it there, but of course, everyone is left with many, many more questions.
Indeed.
As we sit here this evening. Wendy Sherman, thank you. Melissa Hannum from the Middlebury Institute, thank you.